Hello everyone, and welcome to this DCS World update for the 9th of August 2015. So in today's update, I'm actually going to take a bit of a different format. Rather than having a separate video for the news and Q&A, and then one for the in-game video, I'm just going to combine it all into a single video so things aren't missed. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about some of the Eagle Dynamics news and focus just on the Eagle Dynamics news rather than news also what our third parties are doing and mods are doing, just because some other guys are doing some really great updates along those lines, particularly Bunyip. So we really don't see any reason to do a duplication of effort on this. We're just going to focus on the Eagle Dynamics news. So speaking of Eagle Dynamics news, most of the work, as you might imagine, has been focusing on the L39 module. So we've been doing a lot of work on integrating the new sounds specific to this aircraft, and we've been adding some new skins, fixing and adding new cockpit systems, gauges, switches, and all the different subsystems within the aircraft. And we've even started working on some of the missions and the documentation. So right now we're definitely on schedule to have our open beta release for the L39 sometime in September of this year. So what else have we been working on? So we've been working on the Hornet Cockpit, and thanks to the guys who send me the PMs with the great images of the HMD dial. I actually got that in there and it fixed up a lot of the other issues that were outstanding for the cockpit. And right now, but the only really big cockpit issue that still needs to be addressed is the ejection seat, which is going to take a little bit longer. We're having a little difficulty trying to get really good references on that. And in fact, in the slideshow in today, you'll actually get to see some new images of the Hornet Cockpit. But for those with the sharp eyes, you're going to notice some, it's actually SU-27 HDD symbology. Just ignore that. It's just because we're using the SU-27 model as a placeholder as we develop the cockpit, so there's just a crossover between those two. So yeah, just ignore that for now. So let's see, on the F-15 front, the flight model is pretty darn close at this point. We actually just got some really great information from our SMEs about some of the high angle of attack, rudder performance, and we should be getting that into the code very soon. So I think we're probably looking at a final F-15 flight model in the not too distant future, and hopefully be released with 1.5. It's probably the plan. Next, the team's been working hard on the new GUI for DCS World, and one of the big things we've talked about before is having the 3D simulator part of the project now integrated into the front-end GUI because we're using a single executable. So we're already planning on some additional items other than just an encyclopedia, in particular how we can improve the payload screen so you can actually select different skins and payload options and then be able to hit a button and actually view that loaded and painted aircraft in the mission editor before you actually have to start that mission. And I think that'll probably be a pretty wildly liked feature when we get that out there eventually. And finally, I can only speak from my own personal experience, but I guess it's been about a week now. I've had Windows 10 installed, and honestly, I can't find a single issue I've had with Windows 10 and DCS World 1.5/2. Now, granted, I don't have every joystick in the world. I use a Thrustmaster stick and a CH throttle. So my experience of controllers are confined to those. But again, based on my own personal experience, Windows 10 has been a really nice OS for DCS World 1.5/2. And in fact, I actually even think I have some nice performance increase as well. So that's kind of the Eagle Dynamics news. So we'll go on to our Q&A now. So the first question is, Wags, in earlier Q&A, you have mentioned about availability of a satellite view for easy placement of static objects in the NTTR map. Will the same feature be available in the Black Sea Caucasus map? Absolutely. It's basically using the same technology, so it's not that big of a deal to have it in any future map we do. So we'll definitely be including that feature in the Black Sea map as well when you have 1.5. So number 2, it was mentioned that the HTC Vive integration is progressing well, and it is. Are you able to give any indication of fidelity as it relates to gauges, objects at a distance? No, I have not, mainly because right now our development kit's in Moscow and the guys there are playing around with it, working on the integration. And again, it's only actually been a couple weeks, so it's still very early. But I do promise you that once we have some good information that we can pass along about the Vive, I'll definitely make a post in the input controller section of our forums to keep you guys abreast of that. But right now, it's just still a little bit early. It's only been a couple weeks. So number 3, with the pending release of 1.5 in September, will there be any bug fixes for the current aircraft? Will the pilot logbook be fixed? Will new mission editor be included? Right now, the plan is definitely for all this to be in 1.5. And as pointed out, 1.5 is essentially DCS 2, just minus the maps. So actually, just this past week, I've been testing the logbook, just to make sure everything's looking good there, and some additional items. So now, not everything in DCS World 2 list will be in the initial 1.5 release, but as much as we possibly can, obviously we'll get that in there. Okay, so number 4, how will the upgrade to version 1.5 happen? Will it be only alpha/beta in September? How will the Steam version will be affected in this case? So the 1.5 will release exactly as all the other open betas have. So have that open beta install option, which you can use to experience 1.5. And eventually then 1.5 will get rolled into 2 as an open beta. And then eventually once we feel DCS World 2 is ready for prime time, then it'll go into the full open release. So it's actually the exact same pattern that we've done with all the other previous updates. The only big difference is, of course, just how extensive this update is compared to previous updates. Okay, so let's see, number 5. A few streams ago, there was mention of new explosion effects. How are they coming along? They're coming along, but one of the most important things here is that we could have the most beautiful explosion effects and the most wonderfully rendered clouds, but they'll be absolutely perfectly useless if they're a massive performance hit. So one of the big things the team is actually working on right now is working within the new graphics rendering system to enable really great effects while at the same time having really great performance. So right now, most of the team in the effects department are really focused on that performance aspect of having that underlying work to allow these new effects to work really well. Okay, so number 6, will a dedicated server be released with 1.5? Probably not. So as I was saying before, we have a long list of things for 2, but several of those probably won't be released in the initial open version, but should be in there by the time it goes final. And the dedicated server will, in all likelihood, be one of those. It'll come at a later point. So number 7, well, Eagle Dynamics has a former MiG-31 pilot on the dev team. Can we expect a full MiG-25 Foxbat module either in the P series, the R series in the near future? No, right now there's really no plan for that. And honestly, just to save you guys questions in the future, when it comes to questions like this about asking for new features and aircraft and things like that, this is probably really not the place I'm going to be announcing a brand new module and products. Those are probably best put in our wish list. But I'll answer this one. But no, there is no MiG-25 planned at this time. Instead, we have what I definitely think are some much more interesting and more versatile aircraft well before any kind of aircraft like that. Okay, so number 8, will DCS 1.5 come with improved ATC? I don't think 1.5 will. There's still a lot of work to do on that. And right now we're just first going to do it in the tech space. And once we debug the system completely as text messages. Then we got to go through the whole process of recording and integrating all the voiceover. That's still a massive amount of work. So if I had to guess, I probably wouldn't expect to see the new ATC system probably until late into the open betas of DCS World 2. So quite a ways away. So in the meantime, we'll have, which for the most part is going to be the older system as we work on the new system. And on to number 9. Has any thought been given to partnering with Thrustmaster or anyone else on high-end controllers for the F18C module? I'm thinking like the TM Warthog or A10C. It was certainly possible. Right now, there's nothing I can announce on that front, but we're always open to working with hardware controllers that we think have a really good fit with our software. And obviously, Thrustmaster was a perfect fit for us when we did the Warthog, and hopefully whether it's Thrustmaster or another peripheral manufacturer, we'll find some good opportunities that will be beneficial for both sides. And finally, number 10, regarding the new visibility icons, will they work the same as labels do now? Will they be visible through the airframe? No, they will not be visible for the airframe. Also, will they apply to ground targets as well as aircraft? They do. So just as you can increase the visibility of aircraft with this new feature, the same also holds true with ground units. Okay, so that concludes the Q&A, and now we'll go ahead and actually take a look at some in-game footage of the L39C over the Black Sea map. Now, I think until we have 1.5 out, I'm just going to focus the videos in the Black Sea map for now, so that way there's no confusion about anyone thinking that the 1.5 update will include the new maps like the NTTR. Hello everyone and welcome back. I am in the front seat of the L39C Albatross and in formation behind a fellow L39C over the Black Sea map in DCS World 1.5/2. And as I think I mentioned earlier, the Black Sea map will of course look quite similar to the existing map, mainly because it's using most of the same art assets, whether it's the buildings, the textures, even the mesh of the terrain, which gives it a very similar look. So do a little house clean here with the lights. And I can actually raise my seat. And in doing so, I'll go ahead and adjust my sighting. That looks good. And this is an external view of one of the new skins. This is actually one of the Russian acrobatic teams, and currently my favorite skin. I think it's pretty darn beautiful. And let's go ahead and come off to the right, and we'll fly off to Sanaki. Now I'll jump in the back seat, and just like the front seat, I can go ahead and lower or raise my seat. I like to be rather high. Now one of the cool things we've added is the ability to pull, or actually push this handle here and lower the hood in the front cockpit for the student. And now he is blind, and this is going to be a very cool feature for IFR training during the training campaign. And we can pull it and then raise the hood. Now another cool feature I'll show you today, it's called the RAT, the Ram Air Turbine. And I'll first go ahead and zero out my throttle, and then I'll hit the engine cut switch, and that basically killed the engine. And in doing so, the RAT will automatically deploy from the belly and start spinning, and this will provide electrical power to the electrical buses. Pretty cute, huh? Okay, so I'll get my nose down a little bit and get some speed to power the RAT. And I'll come back in the cockpit and I'll shut off the engine shut-off switch, and now I'll restart the Saphir APU. And I'll wait for the APU light to come on to let me know I can go ahead and start the engine up. And there she is. So now I'll go down to the blue switch and press this and get the engine going. Okay, now we got some power going, and we can see the rat coming back into the fuselage. And now we're under full power again too. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll keep driving off to the north and take a look around the Senaki-Kolki area. And for me, I'm not exactly sure why, but I find it actually more enjoyable to fly from the back of the aircraft rather than the front, particularly when you raise your seat height up a bit. And another view from the external. So we'll come back in and we'll do a flight over Senaki-Kolki. And you also may notice that some of the new gauges are up and working now, such as the ADI. So making nice, good, steady progress on this aircraft. And also I should mention that it's still very early, but we're also doing some preliminary tests and multiplayer of the front seat and back seat, and so far it's progressing well. And I think it's been mentioned before, the front seat back seat functionality is one of the primary reasons we actually chose this aircraft to act as a test bed. And in addition to that, it's just also a very, very popular aircraft, particularly for our Russian friends. Good morning, Kolki Senaki. And I'll go ahead and pitch up, and then head back north a little bit. And jumping between the cockpits, very simple. Front cockpit is the 1 key, and the rear cockpit is the 2 key. And that, my friends, is a little update of where we are with the L39C Albatross. So I think if you compare that to a couple weeks ago, we've got a fair amount of new functionality in a relatively short time, whether it's some of the cockpit systems, new skins, new sounds, making some really nice progress here. And as mentioned earlier, I think we're definitely on track to having this out at least as an open beta by September. And that wraps it up for today's news, Q&A, and video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.